Hello, everyone. Welcome to our very special webinar today. We're going to have lots and lots of fun. My name is Debbie Grote, and I'm the CEO and co-founder, of course, of Forward Coaching. I saw a big registration list for this panel where we're going to talk about listings. Now, I totally get it that across most of the country, we're seeing more listing inventory coming in. Buyers are there. In some markets, they're kind of circling. They're watching rates. I think they're going to have to figure out that there's not going to be any bargain of interest rates. We're going to be hanging out in the sixes, and they'll get used to that and get off the fence. So as we talk today, we're going to talk about where our great guests are getting their listings, maybe even a few insights of getting listings sold, because we are seeing few more days on the market, which is not a bad thing. Because remember, when every property had 25 bids, that was pretty difficult. So we'll just talk a lot about that, and you're welcome to type your questions in the chat. So as we go, type them in the chat box. I'll be watching those. And our point today is to inspire you to go take some listings, to work those listings, to find another listing, and just to take some massive action so that not only does this fuel your summer market, but your actions today will really fuel the market of the fall. And I think, Jeff, on that note, maybe we'll start with you. So, Jeff, we're putting all the contact info of our panelists up here in the chat. We will also do that again at the end. And I hope as your way of thanking them, you will send them a referral, right? Because they're all awesome agents. So, Jeff, first of all, you are in a very sexy market. So why don't you talk a little bit about your market, your background, and your areas of specialty, which will tell them maybe some things they might want to type in the chat to ask you.
I've spent the last it'll be 23 years in October working in Los Angeles, specifically in Beverly Hills and its surrounding areas, which are populated mainly by the entertainment business. We've, in terms of buyers and sellers, we've worked with people in front of the camera, behind the camera. Almost every open house I have held up until recently, I could pick out, people that I knew who were in the business, seeing them sign in. We've had a big retraction in the entertainment business in LA. We were off about 40% due to taxation and regulations by the city of LA and the state of California. So it's been an interesting couple of years for us, because even though everybody wants to talk about tariffs and everybody wants to talk about interest rates, we just want to talk about where are the jobs going? Why are these people leaving? So it's a different challenge that we have now than we've had prior to the last couple of years, but we have managed to make up ground and stay level through really pushing on prospecting and keeping all sources of lead generation open and active. It's funny, I always remind people, why doesn't anybody notice there's a giant Hollywood sign hanging over us every day? That's what this town is, and it's really kind of problematic that the city government and the state government has kind of taken it for granted. And now, as you guys know, around the country, other states and other countries are benefiting by welcoming our brethren, into their economies.
Yeah, and I think that brings us to a perfect point. And CD, I see your question. We'll definitely get to it later. But because you decided I can't just lean in on my past relationships, because some of those are moving out of state, your team, you decided to expand your range, reach, and influence. Tell them a little bit about the contest that you all are participating in right now.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds daunting, but, and I saw a lot of the people in my team meeting go a little blue when I first started talking about these contests that we're doing I'm affiliated with Place, which supports us both as a back-end support, coaching support, lead gen support, staff, all of that. So it's their idea, not mine, but I've implemented it very effectively. So right now we're in kind of a 2.5, 3 month period where each of our team members has to hold 50 open houses, call 5,000 contacts, add 50 new contacts to our contact database management system, Brivity, sign 10 written representation agreements, and take 5 listings. So those are the 5 things they can do, and they only have to win 3 of those categories. So you don't have to do all of them.
What was the time period for all of this?
It's basically 3 months.
3 months, right?
Yeah. And we have I have 20 team members, and I have 2 who are ahead at this point if we're tracking it sort of daily and projecting their progress. And we have several others that are working toward it. And I used to not believe in contests, but I really think all a contest is, yes, there are prizes to win, right? But, it's really about enriching your own business. It's about growing your own business and treating it like you are the fiduciary in that business. And it just kind of, I think people who join teams want accountability and want to be tested. And sometimes it's tested against the team. I mean, I was a college athlete. I played baseball all my life. I always felt like part of something, but always also like, am I better than that guy? Maybe I could get better than that guy. So I think there's a double edge to it that really works.
Well, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are touching all sources: past clients, sphere, expired, for sale by owner, open houses, circle prospecting. Like, you guys are truly doing it all, right?
Yeah.
And, Tanya, so let's talk about you. You are definitely not in Beverly Hills. You are a long way to Beverly Hills, right?
Yep, I'm a Midwestern girl here. So I've been in the business for 22 years. With the help of my coach here at Forward Coaching, Dave Taylor, we worked together with 2 local real estate attorneys to open a new boutique brokerage. And we service the Metro Milwaukee and the Madison area in Wisconsin. I do have a small team in each of those markets. What we really focus on, though, I'm the same as Jeff, that when I started, I was lucky enough to have a great mentor who got me going on building a repeat and referral-based business. And so that's what I try to teach my agents to do as well. 60% of my overall business comes from my sphere, about 30% from referrals, and then 10% I do have some internet leads and upcalls that we take as well. But we really focus on...
Sorry, part of your is your attorneys, right?
Pardon?
Part of your sphere is your attorneys, correct?
Yeah, they have been, but they also practice real estate, which makes them even better because they are not deal killer attorneys.
Okay, interesting. And then if you would say 2 or 3 special things you do to cement that loyalty with your past clients and sphere that might be, either unique or might inspire them to go do likewise, what would those be?
I require that everybody on the team has 2 to 4 touches per month with their database. Okay. Whether it's, we do set up, we have some automated things that when we do our marketing plan for the year in the fall, we'll do the next year's plan for the entire year. And a lot of that is automated. Those are emails that automatically go out, postcards that go out. I actually do Happy Grasshopper still. I've been doing that for many years. We have a
time.
Pardon?
I coached that company for a long time.
I'm still doing that one. We have a Business of the Month program where we every month feature a business from our provider list and they offer something special to our clients. We do a lot of client events. One of our favorites is Puppy Pop Up in the Park where we get rescues together. So we are very, very active at really enriching not just the real estate lives, but the personal lives of our database.
So Tanya, I know when people come to us for coaching, one of the things I often hear is 85% of my business comes from the people I know. And then they almost always follow that up with, but I don't do everything I should to contact them. And I think part of what maybe discouraged people over the last couple of years is that a lot of those people were sitting on the fence, right? Our typical move up buyers were not moving because they didn't want to let go of their 2.75 or 3.2% interest rate. Are you starting to see some listings coming more from that group now that they maybe realize that those rates aren't coming back?
Yeah, we do. And I was actually a little surprised at how many are coming back now because like you said earlier, there's not going to be another 3 or 4%. And if you're at a point in your life where you really desire to move, then let's do it. And we use a lot of the consumer guide resources at Forward Coaching too, when we're talking, how can someone do that move up or a move down without being stuck with two mortgages. And we hold seminars that we do hybrid, both live and virtual for people to join. So yeah, we are seeing many more jumping into the market here.
I think there'll be even more of it, right? As that really sinks in. So Jose, you're in a very competitive market also, the NorCal area, right? Very high price point, but not, I don't think you're super luxury, right? Where Jeff will do a lot of the super big luxury. You're more in that just higher end, higher end market.
Yeah, so I'm located in the city of Alameda, California, which is about 10 minutes from San Francisco over the bridge. We're a little island in the bay. It's a really unique marketplace here because we are an island, 8 miles long, 2 miles wide. The greatness of that though is that you become the realtor if you make your contacts. So early on in my career, I was told that real estate is a contact sport. So I embraced that, and I was always, my mindset was always to make contacts, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's out walking down the street, or on the phone, picking up the phone and calling. That's what I did to build my business. We started off with making 20 contacts a day, 25 contacts a day, 30 contacts a day, all the way up to 100 contacts a day. And those contacts that we were making were expired listings, for sale by owners, just listed, just sold, canceled listings, just for rent. Those were actually a big money maker for us when I first started the business. What we were doing also with those contacts is planting seeds, right? Where my company grew to where I am at today. I've been in the business for 22 years, so it's been a long time. But currently we are the number one housing provider in the city of Alameda. We do property management and leasing, about 400 leases a year that we end up doing here in the past 3 years. Up and down from like 385 to 425. And management, we're managing over 1,163 doors, and that's turning into sales, right? It's constant contact with those clients. We have about 680 owners that I am in direct contact with, and I make it a point to talk to them once a quarter. I have a database of over 10,000 people. Obviously, it's a little bit difficult to contact all those people, but that database also includes realtors because realtors love doing business with me. They pass me their clients all day long. And for me to have established a reputation for other brokers to share their clients so we could manage their properties and investments, and build reputation like that by, contributing to their client success is also great.
you say a contact, can you define for them, what do you consider a contact?
Great question. It's when I actually engage in a conversation longer than "Hello, this is Jose," and they hang up. So that's how I consider a contact. It's got to be a little bit of engagement there. And it could be, again, just walking down the street. I make it a point. I don't count contacts like I used to. I used to have a little checklist. Now I just I wake up with the mindset that I need to make contacts or my business dies. I start every single day at 0. And no matter how many listings I have in my inventory, my focus is to get another listing, and to build on that, every single day. So, that's my focus. My priority is to, talk to at least 5 clients, within a day, if I can, right? Whether it's a check-in or see how things are going with their property, how our team is doing. If there's some repairs being done, making sure everything's good. Just a contact, and people appreciate that.
So I love the mindset that where there are people, there are leads. And I think of a contact as a conversation with a decision-making adult, like you said, that lasts for more than 10 seconds. So sometimes, Jose, I see that agents will be very focused and maybe do a really good job on being very focused for an hour or 2 a day. And then when they leave the office and they're out in the world, they forget that that's still an awesome place to hunt for new contacts and connections. And it sounds like that's on your mind every day.
1000%. I'm never working. I'm never not working. So I'm living. I embrace real estate as my life. Whether it's at 9 p.m. or 8 a.m. on the weekend, right? I'm with my boys. If I'm available, I'll pick up the phone and I'll talk to my clients. And again, the accessibility is great for them, and we do build that relationship together. As client and they're my clients, and they're also my, I don't want to say friends, but they are my friends. We turn into friendships.
There's the beauty of a very small fishbowl of a market, in that you can become very well known in that market. The downside of that, though, is you might stand in line at Starbucks, and out of 8 people, half of them are realtors, right?
Absolutely.
It can be super. I mean, all your markets are competitive in a different way, but I've noticed that about a small market, right? So Jeff, let's go with CD's question, tips about promoting listings. So, and I want to throw that out to each of you, because this is a very important one. So first of all, we know that it's not as easy to get these listings sold, and sellers have not yet embraced the fact that it may not be that exact market that we had. So we have some, proving to do, if you will, that we're doing everything we can to promote those listings. So Jeff, maybe you could share, because you guys have an incredible, pre-launch and launch team for your properties, some things you're doing. And then, you guys certainly add, and also maybe even add thoughts about seller communication. How are you communicating and keeping these sellers happy in this time when they get so quickly frustrated, right? If it hasn't sold in one day with 25 bids, right? So
sure. I mean, the biggest problem of the moment with sellers to me is they're living in the past, and we have to yank them out of it and get them to price the home effectively and in line with the comps, whether it be aspirational a bit or right on market value, or they have motivation to price it at an excitement level. We will assess that and determine which price of the 3 that we go with to a listing appointment that we will accept without a fight. And then if we need to argue it through and come to an arrangement with something that maybe doesn't feel right for us, we're going to put conditions on that. but I think once we explain to them what our value is, which is really in the marketing and selling of the property, we treat each one like a television or a movie premiere. We shoot video, we shoot drone, we use still photography, we use moving photography, 360 tours, narration sometimes, custom property websites, Google Plus to optimize these things. I mean, luxury listings, the sad truth, everybody always wants to be a luxury listing agent. And the sad truth is they take longer to sell, they're more expensive to sell, and sometimes they don't sell. So you could be investing, up to, sometimes we have had to spend $35,000 or $40,000, on a listing to make a six-figure commission. Now it all works out in the end unless that house doesn't sell. But we're doing everything we can. And one of the most common things I hear on a luxury expired phone call is the first thing we ask about is communication. We ask, why don't you think your house sold? Well, what do you think the answer to that is? I had a bad agent. Well, tell me about that agent relationship. I'm not interested in tearing the agent down. I just want to know, what was that like for you? What was your perception? And almost 100% of the time they talk about communication. They never told me X. They never told me Y. I never heard anything at all about what wasn't working. We communicate with our sellers. Every time we have an open, we issue an open house detailed report within 2 hours of closing that door that has the names of everybody who came, the phone numbers of everyone who came, and the email addresses of everyone who came. And we are transparent about giving those sellers all of the information. If they want to pick up the phone and call that buyer who said the floor plan didn't work for them and give them a tutorial on what they could do to fix it, they're welcome to do it. They're our partners in this. So I think it's promotion-wise, we have taken everything very seriously technology-wise and try to take it to the 10th power, because that's what these people in LA expect. They're media creatures. So if you're not promoting their listing on social media and you're not posting ads, on the internet, and you're not creating beautiful books to promote the house when you're selling it, I go to a lot of luxury listings and I see the agent just have the setup sheet. And I'm like, this is a $6 million house. If I was buying a $300,000 Ferrari, I'd get an umbrella, a mug, a book about it, but in these houses, it just blows my mind how people undersell them. And it's easy in the expired world of luxury to sort of pick and choose what we want to do, because a lot of times it's the agent's fault that it didn't get the promotion that the client wanted. That may not be the reason it didn't sell, but that's the reason the client thinks it didn't sell.
Well, and I found, and I think you've all found this, if the client does not feel you communicated with them, then they assume you're not working.
Absolutely.
And if they don't hear about the proactive things and see some of those proactive things, they resist everything. They feel, I think, almost betrayed, right? And defeated, and they won't cooperate with price adjustments. They won't cooperate with offer negotiations. And always be careful about saying, the right price, that's the secret, because then that means we have no value, right?
Right, exactly. Well, I think you do say, often I coach my team to tell the seller at least every other day bad news.
Right.
If there are no calls, they need to know that every other day. Hey, just checking in, letting you know, no calls. Here's what we're doing to promote the property. 2 days later, no calls. Here's what we're doing now to promote the property. So we keep showing them our value, but we keep giving them bad news. Because that's the only way you will get to a significant 5% range price reduction. And hopefully that'll move the needle, because in the luxury market, that's about the minimum it takes to get people to look up who haven't come by the property or noticed it yet.
So to Michael's question about advice not in a luxury market, before we pivot, over to Tanya. Things to take away from what Jeff said. Well, first of all, if you're going to do luxury, be cautious about the projects you accept, right? Because again, there is a significant investment. If it's new to you, maybe best to partner for the first few with a luxury specialist, share that cost, tap into their wisdom. And yet, if you just extract from what Jeff said, look in your own market, in your own price point, and say, what are the competitors doing that's kind of normal? And without breaking the bank, what are a few sexier, more dynamic things I can bring to the table to show my sellers that I am really a wise advisor and a champion for their property? So it's not just good enough to do what everyone else does. We want to do it and do it better, right?
And we sell 500,000 in my market, sort of, $500,000 condo, 1-bedroom condos is kind of the starting point for in our area, what we work on. And we treat those properties equally, but don't necessarily spend them the same. But we do launch them in a way to address your point about, what's your advice for non-luxury agents? It's exactly what Debbie said. It's just staying ahead of the curve, always doing your research, always looking at what mainstream advertising is doing, looking at what other realtors, we're always cannibalizing other realtors. Someone will come up with a great idea or a great campaign on something, and I'll be like, we're using that on this next launch. Let's adapt it. Let's go.
Rip off and duplicate.
Oh, absolutely. Because we're all just fighting our way with our backs against the wall in this market. And so we're forced to come out with something new all the time. You can't just do the same old thing every time. We just noticed that, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but it works in any price point. There's a company that does virtual tours. I think it's called 360. And they've created a button that removes all the personal property from the virtual tour. So the client can just hit a button and see that room empty and vacant, which, we spend thousands of dollars on staging, so it kind of breaks my heart. But if it's a lived-in condo and their stuff's not so great, and that client needs to see what they're actually buying is not 2 recliners and a hutch, they can hit that button and the furniture goes away. That's the power of AI. It's moving so fast, and we're holding on to AI's rope and letting it drag us into the next few months of marketing. And that's a great tool for any listing, I think, to erase the seller's personal possessions.
A cool box brownie that will stage it virtually.
Absolutely.
For you. And it's so affordable. So Tanya, when you have a listing, someone said the other day, a fabulous listing agent, a client of mine for many years now, I think he's number 1 in the nation for EXP, David Lawson. He said, listings have babies. So when you get a listing, you can often work that area to get another listing. Is that part of your listing strategy at all?
Not so much for me. One of the things, we do a lot of the same marketing promotion things that Jeff just mentioned, but one of the things we really like to do is not just a brokers open event. Like we had a listing, it was literally a mini Versailles that someone built in this small little community. And we had this big event. It was 106 acres of land that had it imitated the gardens of Versailles and the fountains, and the house was like 9,000 square feet. So we invited the brokers to also bring their clients along. So we did a wine tasting, we had French pastries, we had golf cart tours of the grounds. We had landscapers come in and demonstrate some of the landscaping techniques. So we really did a lot. We like to do extra things that will really pull in more of the agents.
question for you. Did you ever sell that one? Because that's a pretty unique one in your market.
We sold it, yes, in a unique way.
How brilliant, right, Jeff, that even if she had never sold it, she took that and actually turned it into a mini event center. And the thing that sometimes you will have an opportunity to take a listing that's a little higher priced in your market or a little out of the box. And if you're going to do it, you got to ask yourself, how am I going to leverage this, right, to be a good business decision? What about strategies of communicating with your sellers? What's your routine?
So we have our CRM has, I love the seller side of this CRM. We have a listing activity report. We give them a link with a user ID and a password. They can access 24/7 and see everything that's happening with that listing. They can see the showings, the showing feedback. They can see who the agents were, all the marketing. They see, we put the hit data in there. How many hits did they get on Zillow, Homes.com, everything. We load all of that in there as well. And then my, other than, in addition to me calling and speaking with them, my listing manager, she has a regular schedule. We'll ask people, how would you like her to communicate with you on these weekly or biweekly updates? And so we whether it's an email, phone call, or text message, she'll do that as well. But that listing activity report, I have to tell you, is wonderful because I have, a client going through a divorce. So the judge demands the house has to be sold. What are you doing? Boom, we can print a little novel for them of everything that has been happening with this property.
Well, and it's great if you have to go back for a reduction or an extension to prove what you've done. So how long do you give them before you'll ask for a reduction?
Well, fortunately, in our little market, we're still a very strong seller's market. So, right now, 2 weeks, really, if you don't have an offer in 2 weeks. When we were more of a balanced market, maybe 30 days.
Yeah, I always like to settle right into that zone of not more than 21 days. And of course, Jeff, in luxury, that might need to be more than that. You mentioned 5%. Years ago, NAR put out an article. Please, guys, don't ask me where. It's been so long. But I latched onto the info, and this was a great thing to use when there's no, quote, comps, right? Like if you feel it's priced well compared to the data, or there is no data for that particular unique property, like the Versailles that you had. But NAR said that if a property is receiving some activity and no offers, statistically, it's likely to be at least 5% too high. If it's just dead in the water, nothing is happening, statistically, it's likely it's at least 10% too high. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, based on our lack of current activity, then that's telling us that the market is rejecting our price, and we are likely at least 10% too high. And I like to say our and we, get on their side of the fence with a goal, ideally, that we can get them down at least 7. If we feel it's 5% too high, we can get them down at least 3. I've just have never experienced that tiny price drops work well. It's like a million paper cuts to that seller, right? We just need to tell them what they need to do, get that adjustment down, and do it in bigger chunks if you're in that type of market. This says I'm speaking a different language. No, we are still in English. Okay. So last thought, Tanya, before we move over to Jose, that you'd like to share?
As far as sellers, and
find open houses to be a productive way in your market to meet other sellers in the community. Is that something that's working well for your team?
Yeah, that is. I don't personally do many open houses, but my team members do. And yeah, they're having some success.
Yeah. And Jeff, I know you guys are seeing some success, and really expireds have been a big thing for you, right?
Right. And also open houses are where the buyers are. I mean, right now we find, due to the settlement lawsuit taking effect last August, and the rates kind of settling out and flattening out, the buyers are kind of out there on their own. They don't really seem comfortable in my market joining forces with a realtor until they're really ready. And sometimes they're just shopping and want to go direct. But if it's not the right house for them, we have a really great way of converting a buyer into, we immediately send them that night at least 15 other options, just to kind of get them looking at other properties that we can take them to. Some of them are on market, some of them are off. They love to see that yellow highlighter of properties that we have access to that are not yet in the MLS. I just think open houses are where we've had the most success in finding buyers. We've also had a lot of success at open houses finding sellers. They're coming in undercover, watching us, seeing what we do. Like Tanya's saying, coming to events. I had a developer come to an event I had a week and a half ago, and then he came out to me during the end of the party and said, "I'm not really a buyer, I'm a developer, and I just wanted to see what you guys did, in action, before I called you about looking at my house." So I think opens are the seat of power right now for developing listings and developing buyers.
It's kind of like you're on a job interview. So Jose,
Yeah, totally.
lots of things you've had a chance to think about, your special ingredients, your secrets. So I'm just going to let you run with it, because you're a man of hats and talents. What would you add to advice on how to find listings, how to get another listing, how to service listings? I'm going to just let you take it away.
Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, and you had mentioned something that's a great point regarding every listing usually gets us 2 more deals somehow, whether it's a buyer lead or a listing lead. So we definitely work that angle as well. When we get a listing, we like to go door knock to the neighborhood and tell everybody about the listing. Events, like Tanya had mentioned, those are great. People love our brokerage tours that are open to the public, fully catered, and people come, and especially in this market, a lot of brokers like to come and hang out and eat. So that's a great time. And Jeff, all those technology, right? All the technology that we have at our disposal now. And thank you for mentioning 360. I think that's something that we're going to be able to use for a lot of our tenant occupied properties. So what we do in our marketplace, and I think this is kind of unique to the Bay Area, is pricing properties at least 15 to 30% below the market value in hopes to generate a number of offers. It was not uncommon 6 months ago to have 10 to 15 offers on a property. I'm working with David Long right now because that market has kind of shifted. So right now we're actually pricing it at value, going 10 to 15 below where we think the market value is. So really looking at that now on, setting expectations with the sellers and, frankly, just being honest, right? And straightforward with them, letting them know, like, look, this market is changing, right? I don't know, right? The last sold was $1 million. This one, I would assume it's sell for $1 million, right? But because that one sold for $1 million, it's a, we don't know. So let's put it out there to, at 897. Let's see what happens after 2 weeks, and then let's reconvey, and hopefully we'll have 10 to 15 offers. If not, right, 1 or 2 would work, and we can negotiate the price up. If we get no offers, which we're on the property right now dealing with, I'm reaching out to every single broker who has showed the property. I'm asking them where the offer is. I'm saying, let's get married, right? What can we do to make this happen? And trying to get all the objections from the buyers. And what I'm noticing, and not to say anything bad about our realtors in our marketplace, but there's a lot of realtors not asking questions. So why didn't you guys write an offer? And they're like, well, we really don't know. So it actually gets them to come back to their clients and ask them, and then we're able to work through that. So I'm right now ratifying a contract on a condo that's been sitting on the market, and the big objection has been windows. Right, so I got my sellers to agree to replace all the windows, and it looks like we're going to get this all wrapped up here today, just by finding out, hey, the windows. So again, it's a contact sport. A lot of people don't like to pick up the phone and call people. I love it. I mean, that's where we have conversations. We get to know the other side. We get to know more details, and we're able to use that information to go back to the sellers and hopefully get reductions if needed. Price reductions when I get them, I'm looking for 15 to 50,000 below where we're at. I tell them let's not waste time with a small reduction. If they want to do a small reduction, I say, well, let's hold tight and let's see what we can do. It's not even worth it, really. It's hard though as a new agent. I get it from new agents standpoint where like to be able to go in and ask for that reduction. You do got to just do it, and just silence is key when you're having that conversation. Just say it and don't say a word, and let them get mad, let them yell, and then go back and say, hey, this is you hired me, right? This is what I'm suggesting.
You're the doctor. You got to tell them what they got to do. But you did say a couple of really cool things in there. Of course, I love the fact about you got to be honest. And you've got to set expectations. The tricky part of that, though, because I've done it the wrong way, like years ago in a crashing market where I was like, I think I might have been going in almost like the angel of death, and it repelled the seller, and my listing taken ratio went from 92% to 48% because they didn't like me. How do you find that balance of giving the truth, setting the expectation without deflating them to a point that they just want to run away with you and list, or run away from you, list with someone who will do what they want? How do you manage that?
Great question. I think that I show them through comps, and I explain to them and ask them if they were looking to buy a property, what would they pay for their own property? A lot of times they're still over where we think that they need to be. If they're open to a built-in reduction, then I'd be willing to take it. But again, it costs money for us when we list properties. We do the concierge service, so we pay for staging up front. We will refresh the house. We spend anywhere from we're not spending $30,000, $40,000, but we're probably spending anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 just for photographs and videos and so forth. And if the mindset of that client is out of reality or out of touch, then it's just at that point better to walk away, and then to be the second realtor when they come back to us and say, we should listen to you. It's hard to do. I have my team members that I have to walk them through this, and they want to sell, right? And I get it. So it's just, again, being upfront. It makes it easier when you're having that conversation as well. Like and I am the market expert, but I'm saying I'm learning it. I'm learning on the job as well right now, the market, because the market is up and down, neighborhood to neighborhood, block from block, right? So, and I think they understand that. I think they get it with the news and everything that they see themselves. So I think that conversation is a little bit easier. But yeah, I do have clients. I have an investor right now who is turning over their property. They bought it for a great price. Put in $300,000-$400,000 into it, and now where they thought they were going to land at is lower, and me and him aren't talking right now. and that's okay. He's not going to go somewhere else. I know he's going to come back to me, but he's processing it right now because he knows that it's not going to be the income that he thought that he was going to get up front.
To your point, though, I think in the moment when we're all taught to close, right? Get the answer, get the signature. And yet I found with price reductions with a seller, sometimes you have to put that information out there they resist it or they want a smaller reduction, and you say, that won't work. So let's just take a minute, take a couple of days, think about it. I'll reach back out. They definitely need some time, a moment to grieve, because often their first answer is going to be no. I'm laughing at Michael saying, I'd rather slap them with the truth than kiss them with a lie. One great question I've often asked sellers is, our statement is, I respect you enough to tell you the truth. May I have your permission, to be direct, to be open and honest, because we are partners in this. And in fact, in our scripts that we teach our, forward coaching clients, I even tell them, remind that seller that I have every reason to fight for you. If I can get you this highest price, you're going to love me. I'll be your realtor for life. I earn more also. However, as business partners, if the market is not responding, we will have to sit down in 2 to 3 weeks and we'll have to make some strategic decisions. So I think we got to remind them we're partners, we're going to fight for them, and that we're, really on their side. And then there was something, as you were saying all this, I thought of another great line, and maybe it'll come back to me here in a minute. And Michael made me think of it with the slapping them with the truth. So anything else that you would add to that?
No, I think that's pretty much sums it up. Yeah, just being ahead of the market right now, I think, is crucial. Now you got to think 2 steps ahead. Pricing it at today's market is not going to work 2 weeks from now. So remember, 15 to 20% from the last sell, I think is a good number to start at.
Debbie, what I heard Jose say kind of is when he was talking about sellers is work with the willing, which is something you've said to me in our coaching sessions. He's sort of considering whether or not he's going to work with this person, based on what they're telling him, and thinking about his investment into that property. Is he going to see an ROI on that, or is he just going to be the realtor who loses it to another realtor who's then going to sell it, while spending a lot less and getting the reduction? And I think when we sit in these meetings with sellers, I'm always quantifying and qualifying, like, is this going to work for me too? Like, I don't want to enter a partnership of failure. I don't want to be the test market for this listing and spend my hard-earned dollars and then somebody else ends up selling it. I mean, go ahead.
Right. And reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we want those sold signs. And so I'm very careful that even if it is aspirational pricing, I've kind of got a plan of attack for those reductions coming, and making sure that we end up as the closer.
Well, I did remember what you made me think of a minute ago, Jose. One thing that I've been coaching all of our people in the last few years is be very careful about going in and telling them what is wrong with their property. Be very careful. Be very sensitive to that, especially on the home tour. If you overwhelm them or you offend them, so you got to, treat that like you're walking through a minefield. And guess what, guys? If their house backs to the prison and faces the junior high, they already know that. For you to go in and say, well, your house backs to the prison faces, it just makes them mad. But here's a great question instead. Ask them this. Say, I'm curious, what do you think a buyer might try to use against us in the negotiation? Well, gee, Jose, backs to the prison, faces the junior high. Remember, you're their champion. You know what? You are absolutely right. And yet, it's a good thing you're going to hire me, because I have already mapped out a strategy to market to the prison guards and the faculty. I have a plan. And let's remember, lots of people bought a home on this street. We just need to find one. So see, they want that kind of, it's not lying to them about the market challenges, the property challenges, but it's meeting those challenges with enthusiasm, creative ideas, and solutions. So please stop telling them what's wrong and instead ask them, right? It's that simple. I would even go so far as to say, for some of you, you might find it's more successful to sit with them, get the property listed at a price you feel is okay. You know, you've decided to make that business decision. Then, now that I've got the listing back in my hand, I can say, now that we're partners, let's have, Tanya, a conversation about expectations, how many showings, the market response, a strategy if the market doesn't respond, because the real estate market's like the stock market. It's really unpredictable. It changes every day. So I cannot promise you I can achieve this price, but I can promise you I'm going to fight for it. And I'm going to keep you informed every step of the way. So it sometimes works better to have the more tough love. Once they've hired you, they listen a little better, and you now have the listing. So guys, I want to leave my last thought, and then I'm going to let you each do like a 30-second last thought. And then we'll, answer the last couple questions here. One of the things that I learned in that lesson of going in like the angel of death and being too aggressive and seeing my ratio of listing taken drop is I learned that I might have to take some listings overpriced. If I were going to do that, though, I had to have some strategy around that. So I created my own set of standards. Standard number one, there is true motivation there. Not someone that's just testing the market, playing a game. Now, maybe they have a little bit of time, but there is true motivation there that I am certain, time over motivation, they're going to do what they need to do. Second standard, the property couldn't be awful. Back into the prison facing the junior high. Some locations or floor plans are so strange or so difficult. If it is not a bargain, you do not want it. So I'm not talking about something that's just a little old-fashioned. I'm talking about a really difficult property. The third thing, I'm going to have to put up with these people for a while. Are they reasonable people, or are they psychotic and they're going to make me crazy, blowing up my phone 15 times a day? Because if that's the case, maybe I don't want this. And then the last one was more an accountability for myself. And you can change this ratio however you choose. But at that time, my ratio was I won't list anything more than 10% above where I actually believe it should be. So that's what held me accountable of not letting my ego or fear, desperation carry me away and cause me to list it at a higher price. And I love that everyone here knows their numbers. And I hope you all figure yours out as well. What does each listing cost you? And don't forget to factor in your hourly rate, your staff's hourly rate if you have a team. When you look at your total cost of listing and you compare it to the commission earned and the likelihood of that property selling, you got to ask yourself, is this a good business decision? So guys, you know what I used to do? I used to write what that number was on a check, and I would make the check out to the seller, and I would do that in the car before I walked in, and I would take that and I would put that in my pocket. Now, did I ever hand that to the seller? No. But I was trying to make that mental, basically I'm investing that much in this listing. Am I sure I'm going to get my money back with a return? And that was just part of my little accountability, right? So Jeff, if you want to grab a question in the chat box or just give a last kind of 30-second takeaway, that'd be awesome. And then we'll go right around the room.
Just quickly on the chat, regarding listing period, I agree with Lucy that 6 months is the ideal period of time because, if you're going to take this on, you do want time to sell it, and we're listing a property sometimes, a couple of months before it's going to hit the market because we're going to be working with that homeowner over a lot of improvements and re-landscaping and whatever. Well, how do we do that? Then I make sure that the listing agreement says that we have, 180 days from MLS entry to the end of the listing period. So I'll put a term on it, and I say it's superseded by whichever is longer. But never fear listing something early, even though you can't get it to market quickly, because you do want to be in contract with that seller. Because once those landscape trucks arrive, every realtor in town is going to be dropping by. Hey, what's going on? Are you selling? And you want to have that listing in pocket. So I do think it's important to try to get something under contract as quickly as possible so you're the go-to for it.
Well, and it makes sense. They couldn't have an attorney start advising and doing work with them and for them without committing to that attorney and putting them on retainer. So why
right. should? But I find a lot of realtors can't figure out how to do that. Like they'll say, well, I'll do a modification or an extension of time when I get to the end of the listing agreement. But if you just say, I want 180 days clear on the market, plus everything and anything before that, then you don't have to worry about a mod, In
a simple way. So, Jose, last tip from you.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know it really is a contact sport. I think that's the biggest issue I see with agents in my office and also outside, even other listing agents when I contact them. Pick up the phone, have a conversation. It's gonna pay dividends because you're gonna get to know each other. You're gonna be able to work. So I love having conversations with folks. Yeah, I send them a text and say, is it okay for a quick 5 minutes, that's okay. But really pick up the phone and call and talk, and clients as well.
And Jose, to that point, and again, not to be rude, but not every realtor in your market is as experienced as you are. And sometimes that friendly conversation, you can literally coach them into going to that buyer and getting that offer together. And I think that's really part of our job as an advocate for the seller. So Tanya, almost out of time. So last great thought from you, and we popped up everybody's contact info there again, guys. Please note that. Send them a great referral. So Tanya, your last thought?
Yeah, for someone who's looking to try to build their listing inventory, not through doing cold calls or taking internet leads, another great way I've had success is by working within the industry, volunteering. I spent the last 11 years in leadership roles at the local, state, and national level. And this year alone, we're not even halfway through the year, and I've already gotten 6 referrals that have come in from agents across the country. So it's fun to, if you're high I like me, yay, you want to volunteer, and you just meet so many people and you build those relationships, and then it's going to happen.
That just leaves us in such a great spot, because the passion that I have here at Forward Coaching, which is why I launched the company 13 years ago, is I don't believe in this cookie cutter approach to the business. I don't. And I don't believe the cookie cutter approach to the coaching works, because look at everyone here. So different, different personalities, different markets, different strengths, and different passions on how they approach the business. And, so Tanya, for you, finding those things where you can connect in the community. And I love that you said the things you enjoy, because I do believe that you got to show up authentic. Right? So if a particular charity is not a passion of yours and you just show up there to get business, it's just not going to work, right? So when you think about it, we've got such a difference. So we have these professional industry entertainment connections, plus I know, Jeff, you guys do some other things as well, but very strong in that high level professional connection. Then we've got Jose. Jose, you and I came from the same background. pick up the phone and knock on the door, right? And then we've got Tanya, which is really leveraging the power of relationships, sphere, community connections. So there's something for everyone, right? So guys, I so appreciate your time. I know you are super busy, and it was just awesome. So I hope you got some good tips from each other, because I certainly got some good tips from all of you.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Copy of the recording. It will come automatically tomorrow. All right, guys. Thanks. Have a
Amazing. Thank you.
Bye-bye.